was just a girl.
We're like diamonds in the sky. Yeah, yeah, except for me.
Cause it's always a good time.
Hello everyone, we are the group 3 and we're going to discuss about acquisition and transfer of title. Understanding the requirements for a valid deed. When it comes to buying or selling property, a deed is a vital document to transfer ownership. To ensure a deed is legally valid, it must meet specific requirements. These reports break down these essential elements in a clear and straightforward manner. A deed is a legal contract that transfers ownership from one person to another. It involves several key components that must be executed correctly. Key components of a valid deed. First, the grantor, the one who is selling the property. This person must be at least 18 years old and capable of making decisions. Their name should be consistent throughout the document to avoid confusion. Second, the grantee, the one who is buying the property. If the buyer's name is incorrect or missing, the deed is invalid. Third, consideration. Consideration is what the buyer gives in exchange for the property. This is usually money, but it can also be something else, like service or a small gift. Fourth, granting clause. This part of the deed states that the seller intends to give the property to the buyer immediately. It uses words like give or transfer to make this clear. Fifth, habendum clause. This clause explains what kind of ownership the buyer receives. It often uses phrases like to have and to hold to clarify the buyer's rights. 6. Limitations. Sometimes there are rules or restrictions on the property, like allowing someone else to use that part of the land. This must be clearly stated in the deed. 7. Legal descriptions. The deed must describe the property in a precise and legal way. A simple address is not enough. It needs details like lots numbers or boundaries. 8. Exceptions and reservations. This part lists any existing issues or conditions with the property, like unpaid loans. Buyers should carefully review this to avoid surprises. 9. Grantor's signature. The seller must sign the deed to make it valid. If there are multiple sellers, they all need to sign. If the seller cannot sign, someone they can trust can sign for them. 10. Delivery and acceptance. Finally, the seller must give the deed to the buyer, and the buyer must accept it. Without this step, the ownership does not officially change.
Types of deeds. So deeds are legal documents used to transfer ownership of real property. So first is warranty deed. So warranty deed provides the highest protection the grantor guarantees that the title is clear of any issue. So example, if a person sells a house with warranty deed, ensuring the buyer there are no hidden claims or liens. Second is special warranty deed. So the grantor only guarantees that the property was not encumbered or liable with debts during the ownership. So example is if a property developer sells a house with a special warranty deed covering only the period they own it. 3 is grant deed, includes 2 implied warranties. The grantor has the right to transfer the property and it's not encumbered except as noted. So example is a homeowner sells a house with a grant deed confirming no hidden debts on the property. 4. Guardian and sale deed implies that the grantor sold the title but gives no guarantees against hindrances. Example, a bank sells a foreclosed property with a bargain and sale deed. Number 5. Quitclaim deed provides the least protection and transfer whatever interest the grantor has without guarantees. Example, a parent transfer property to a child using a quitclaim deed. Number 6. Deed in trust. Transfer property to a trustee who manages it for beneficiary. Example, if a person set up a trust for their child's future property ownership. 7 is trustee deeds, used when a trustee transfers property based on trust terms. Example, a bank foreclose a home and transfer it through a trustee deed. 8 is deeds executed pursuant to court order, used when a court directs a property transfer. Example, due to divorce or debt statement. A judge ordered the sale of property to settle debt. Involuntary alienation. So this refers to transfer of property without the owner's consent. So first is operation of law. So a property transferred to state if the owner dies without heirs. So example, if a person dies without a will, so the state of claims the property. Second is adverse possession. If someone takes ownership by occupying and using and openly and continuously for a legal period. Example, if a person lives on abandoned land for 20 years without the owner without the owner challenging it. 3 is court ordered. A court can order the sale of property to settle debt. Example is a household to pay off mortgage debt after foreclosure.
Property ownership can change in different ways. Sometimes people choose to transfer their property, but other times they lose it without wanting to. First, I will talk about involuntary transfer of property. Next, I will discuss the natural forces affecting land ownership. Then, I will explain transfer of property upon death. And finally, I will talk about voluntary transfer of property. I will now explain each topic in detail. Involuntary transfer of property. This happens when someone loses their property because of laws, debts, or government actions. Types of involuntary transfer of property. First is escheat, eminent domain, foreclosure, adverse possession, and lastly, court-ordered sale. The first type is escheat when the government takes the property. If a person dies without a will and has no family, the government takes their property. Like for example, John has no family and dies without a will. The government takes his house and sells it. And the second type is eminent domain. Government takes land for public use. The government take the property land for public projects like roads, but they must pay the owner. For example, the city builds a highway, but houses are in the way. The government pays the owners and takes the land. Next is foreclosure. Bank takes property for unpaid loans. If a person does not pay their home loan, the bank takes the house and sells it. Like for example, Sarah cannot pay her loan for 1 year. The bank takes her house and sells it to recover the money. And the fourth is adverse possession. Someone takes the land by living on it. If someone lives on another person's land for a long time without permission, they may become the new owner. Like for example, Tom lives in an empty house for 20 years. He adds the court and becomes the legal owner. And lastly is court-ordered sale. Property is sold to pay debt. If a person does not pay their debt, the court may order the property to be sold. Like for example, Mark owes 1M and the court orders his house to be sold to pay the debt. Natural forces affecting land ownership. Nature can change land over time, like when a river adds more soil or when the ocean takes land away. And how nature can change property ownership. The first one is accretion. The second one is erosion, and lastly is reliction. How nature can change property ownership. The first one is accretion, or land increases. Over time, rivers or winds add more land to a property. Like for example, a river slowly adds more land to a farmer's property. And next is erosion. Land is lost. Wind, water, or other natural forces remove parts of land. Like for example, a beach house loses land over time as waves wash away the soil. And lastly is reliction. Water goes away and the new land appears. If the water permanently dries up, the new land belongs to the property owner. Like for example, a lake dries up and the land is added to nearby properties. I will now explain the different ways property is transferred after death. First one is probate. A court decides who gets the property. A court checks the will and then makes sure debts are paid before giving the property to their heirs. Like for example, Linda leaves a will. The court follows it and gives her house to her son. And the second one is will, a document that says who gets the property, and the person writes a will to decide who gets their property when they die. And there are 3 types of wills. The first one is formal will, written and signed with the witnesses. The second one is holographic will, handwritten and signed. And the third one is non-cupative will, a spoken will often made when a person is dying. And lastly is no will. Intestate succession. If a person dies without a will, the law decides who gets the property. And can get the spouses, children, parents, siblings, and other relatives. Like for example, Mike dies without a will. His wife inherits his house. If he had no wife, his children would inherit it. My last topic is voluntary transfer of property. When property is given or sold by choice. And this happens when someone sells, gives, or rents their property to another person by choice. And there are 4 types of voluntary transfer of property. The first one is transfer by deed. The second one is transfer by sale. And the third one is gift of property. And lastly is transfer by lease. Transfer by deed. Legal paper to change ownership. A deed is a document used to transfer property to someone else. Like for example, Anna sells her house to David. She signs a deed giving him ownership. Second is transfer by sale. Buying a property. A person buys a property from the owner. And the next is gift of property. Giving property for free. A person can give their properties to someone else as a gift. Like for example, my father gives his vacation house to my eldest brother as a wedding present. And lastly is transfer by lease, renting property. A person allows another to use their property for a set time in exchange for rent. In summary, property ownership can change in different ways. It can be by choice, selling, gifting, or leasing. Second is by death, a will, probate, or law decides. And lastly is by choice, government, courts, or nature take control.